So one of the interesting challenges that we get to play with, and I think it's an opportunity, I don't think it's an obstacle, is what are our curricular priorities? We get to start to play with, if I'm going to teach depth instead of breadth, what does that look like? How do I do that? And again, this is going way back to '98. If you look at Wiggins and McTeague, their research was pretty clear on make sure there's three levels of what's worth teaching, right? There's enduring understandings. That's sort of the things that go with us beyond our class or our school. There's important things to know and do. And then last but not least, there's stuff worth being familiar with. And one of the interesting things when we start to play with the difference between an objective and an activity is the objective should be in that enduring understanding circle, right? Those are the kinds of things that are kind of non-negotiable and that are very important to us. The activities will vary, right? And one of the things that a lot of successful distance learning programs have is the idea of depth instead of breadth, right? So we're actually changing the dynamic from I have these 20 students looking at me and I'm covering material to, okay, what are the things that are worth doing? What are the things that are worth knowing? What will lead to enduring understanding for my students in whatever class it happens to be? Those are different questions, right? So one of the things that's really helpful to think about is Bloom's taxonomy, which many of us who have been in this game for a long time are very familiar with. And that the left side is sort of the traditional model, right? In class, we help students remember things, we help them understand. Often outside of class, in the old model, was when they would apply, when they would analyze, when they would evaluate, when they would create. Okay. In the flip model, which I'll cover a little more in a few minutes, the flip model, you're basically turning that on its head. Okay, and saying, okay, in class, we're going to create, we're going to evaluate, we're going to analyze, we're going to apply. Outside of class is where students are going to work to demonstrate that they have understanding and that they're remembering terms or recall, retrieval, whatever you want to call it. Okay. In some ways, we're in a flipped model, whether we want to admit that or not. Okay, when you're taking asynchronous and synchronous things and putting them together, or mixing and matching, it very much is a flipped, potentially a flipped model. I'll come back to flipped in a few minutes, just to help us think about it in a different way. But it offers some different opportunities for us, right? So we need to think about those curricular objectives, get clear on what those priorities are. That'll make the planning and actually the teaching a lot easier as we start to put these kinds of things together.